The only thing colder than the chlorinated water was Lara's laugh that night. I stood there in my tailored swim shorts, holding the velvet ring box behind my back like some lovesick teenager, watching my wife of 4 years flirt with her ex-boyfriend at the Riverside Country Club's annual summer gala. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Evan, honey, come here," Lara called out, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she wanted to show me off, or show me up. I couldn't tell which anymore. I walked over to where she stood near the diving board, surrounded by her usual crowd of admirers and hangers-on. Matt Delacroix lounged in a pool chair like he owned the place, his influencer-perfect abs glistening under the party lights. Monica Hartwell, Lara's best friend and chief enabler, sipped her martini with that predatory smile she wore whenever drama was brewing. "We were just talking about the old days," Lara said, her hand resting on Matt's shoulder a beat too long. "Remember when Matt used to lift me over his head at the beach parties?" Matt grinned, showing off those expensive veneers. "Still could, I bet. Some things never change." "Prove it," Monica chimed in, always ready to stir the pot. Before I could say anything, Lara was positioning herself in front of Matt, arms raised like a cheerleader. The crowd gathered, phones appearing from nowhere. This was social media gold in the making. Matt stood up, flexed theatrically, and in one smooth motion, hoisted Lara above his head. She squealed with delight, her designer bikini catching the light as she posed for the cameras. The crowd cheered and applauded. "Your turn, Evan," someone shouted. I felt every eye in the place turn to me. This was it, the moment I was supposed to prove my worth, show that I could match the fitness influencer with his perfect physique and his perfect life. "Come on, babe," Lara said as Matt lowered her down. "Show everyone what you've got." I stepped forward, knowing this was a mistake, but unable to back down without looking like a coward. I positioned myself, bent my knees, and tried to lift her the way Matt had. But 4 years of hotel management, late nights reviewing contracts, and stress eating had taken their toll. I got her halfway up before my arms started shaking. "Careful there, sport," Matt said with mock concern. "Don't hurt yourself." I managed to get Lara over my head for maybe 3 seconds before my strength gave out. She came down harder than I intended, stumbling backward into Matt's waiting arms. That's when she said it. The words that would replay in my head for months to come. "Oh, Evan," she laughed, that crystalline sound that used to make my heart race and now made my stomach turn. "You could never lift me like my ex can." The laughter erupted around us like a volcano. Monica nearly choked on her martini. Gavin, Matt's perpetual sidekick, slapped his knee. Even people I didn't know were pointing and giggling. I stood there, dripping wet and humiliated, watching my wife bask in the attention while her ex-boyfriend played the hero. The ring box felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my pocket. "You okay there, boss?" I turned to find Donna Martinez, my hotel manager, standing behind me with a concerned expression. She was one of the few people at this party who actually worked for a living. "Just peachy," I muttered, forcing a smile. "Maybe it's time to call it a night?" she suggested quietly. I looked back at Lara, who was now posing for more photos with Matt, completely oblivious to my presence, or maybe not so oblivious. Maybe this was exactly what she wanted. "Yeah," I said. "Maybe it is." I walked over to where she was holding court. "Lara, we should head home." She barely glanced at me. "Oh, don't be such a party pooper. The night is young." "I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Then take an Uber," she said dismissively. "Monica can give me a ride later." The crowd had moved on to other entertainment, but I could still feel eyes on me. The failed husband, the weak link, the man who couldn't even lift his own wife. "Fine, I said. Enjoy your ride. I grabbed my shirt and keys, nodding to Donna as I headed for the exit. Behind me, I could hear Lara's laughter mixing with Matt's deep chuckle. They were probably already planning their next photo opportunity. As I drove home through the quiet suburban streets, I replayed the evening over and over. The humiliation burned in my chest like acid. But underneath the embarrassment, something else was growing. Something colder and more calculating. I pulled into our driveway and sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the house I'd bought for us 3 years ago. The house where I'd planned to propose tonight. I stood there frozen as my wife walked toward the stage with another man. The security guards looked confused, glancing between Jonas and me. "Sir?" one of them said. "Are you coming?" "Apparently not," I managed to croak. From my seat, I watched in horror as D-Flame interviewed my wife and her ex-boyfriend on stage. The massive screens on either side of the stage showed their faces to the entire crowd of 15,000 people. "So how long have you two been together?" D-Flame asked. "Well," Selena said, her voice carrying across the festival grounds through the sound system. "It's complicated." The crowd laughed. Jonas put his arm around her waist. "Complicated how?" D-Flame pressed. "Let's just say I'm with the wrong guy tonight," Selena said, looking directly at Jonas. My blood turned to ice. Around me, people in the VIP section were starting to stare. Some were pulling out their phones. "Oh, we got some drama up here," D-Flame shouted. "So what you gonna do about it?" That's when my wife of 8 years, the woman I'd worked overtime for months to give a perfect night, leaned in and kissed Jonas Hartwell in front of 15,000 people and God knows how many live streams. The crowd went absolutely insane. Phones were everywhere, recording every second. The kiss seemed to last forever, and when they finally broke apart, Selena grabbed the microphone. "Sometimes you just have to follow your heart," she announced. The crowd cheered. D-Flame was eating it up, and somewhere in that sea of phones, I knew my humiliation was being broadcast to the world. I sat there, numb, as my wife danced on stage with another man, while thousands of strangers celebrated the destruction of my marriage. Lila appeared beside me, her hand on my shoulder in mock sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Dave," she said. But there was something in her voice that didn't sound sorry at all. I had no idea she was planning this. But she was smiling. Just slightly, but I caught it. My phone started buzzing, text after text, notification after notification. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I was trending, and not in a good way. The festival cuck was already gaining traction. When Selena finally returned to the VIP section, glowing with excitement and attention, she found me packing up my things. "Dave, wait," she said, but she didn't sound particularly upset. "We need to talk." "Yeah," I said, slinging my backpack over my shoulder. "We do, but not here." As I walked away from the VIP section, leaving my wife with her ex-boyfriend and their audience of thousands, I heard Jonas call out, "Thanks for the great seats, computer guy." The laughter that followed me out of the festival would echo in my ears for days, but it would also fuel something else, something darker and more calculating than simple heartbreak. If Selena wanted drama, I'd give her drama. If she wanted a show, I'd give her a show she'd never forget. The real encore was just beginning. The video had already hit 1 million views by the time I got home. Wife dumps husband live at music festival was trending on 3 different platforms, and the comments section was a special kind of hell. Dude got cucked in 4K HD. This is why you don't marry above your league. Plot twist, she's been cheating the whole time. That last one hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. I sat in my empty living room, scrolling through an endless stream of memes featuring my shocked face from the moment Selena grabbed Jonas instead of me. Someone had already turned it into a GIF with the caption, "When you realize you're the NPC in someone else's love story." My phone rang. Trish Kowalski, owner of Murphy's Tavern and the closest thing I had to a best friend in this town. Jesus Christ, Dave. I just saw the video. Are you okay? Define okay, I said, taking another sip of beer. My wife just publicly humiliated me in front of half the internet, so I'm having a pretty standard Tuesday night. Where is she now? I glanced toward the stairs. Upstairs, packing. Apparently she's staying at Lila's place while we figure things out, which is code for while she sleeps Jonas in a bed that isn't technically ours. Dave, you know what the best part is? I spent 3 months of overtime money on those VIP tickets. 3 months of eating ramen and skipping lunch so my wife could have the perfect night out, and she used it to dump me on live television. Come down to the bar, Trish said. First round's on me. Thanks, but I think I'll stay here and enjoy my newfound internet fame. Did you see the one where they put my face on the crying Jordan meme? Trish was quiet for a moment. Dave, I need to tell you something. About Jonas. Something in her voice made me sit up straighter. What about him? He's been coming into the bar for months, always with different women, always bragging about his conquests. What kind of evidence? The kind that can't be explained away. That evening, I came home to find Lara in the kitchen, preparing what looked like a very elaborate dinner. She was wearing my favorite dress, the blue one that brought out her eyes, and she'd done something different with her hair. Hey, honey, she said, giving me a kiss that lasted a beat longer than usual. How was your day? Fine, this looks nice. What's the occasion? Can't a wife make dinner for her husband without an occasion? She smiled, but something felt off. Too bright, too eager. Of course, smells great. We sat down to dinner and she chattered about her day, her upcoming event planning projects, Monica's latest drama. All perfectly normal conversation, except for the way she kept checking her phone. Expecting a call? I asked. Just work stuff. You know how it is. I did know how it was, but I was beginning to suspect that her work stuff had abs and a verified Instagram account. After dinner, she excused herself to take a shower. I waited until I heard the water running, then quietly picked up her phone from the counter. She'd never been secretive about her passcode. It was our anniversary date. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through her messages. Most of them were exactly what I'd expect. Conversations with Monica about weekend plans, exchanges with clients about event details, random family updates. But then I found the thread with Matt. The messages went back months. At first, they were innocent enough, catching up, sharing memories, the usual small talk between old friends. But as I scrolled through the more recent exchanges, the tone changed. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Last night was incredible. You haven't changed a bit. I keep thinking about what you said at dinner. Evan's out of town again. Want to grab lunch? The shower was still running upstairs. I took screenshots of the most damaging messages and sent them to my own phone, then deleted the sent messages from her account. My hands were steady now, my mind clear. When Lara came downstairs 20 minutes later, her hair damp and smelling like vanilla shampoo, I was reading a book on the couch. Good shower? I asked without looking up. I'm pretty tired. Think I'll head to bed early. Good idea. You've got that big event tomorrow. She kissed the top of my head. Love you. Love you too. But as I watched her walk upstairs, I realized that those words felt different now. Hollow. Like something you say out of habit rather than feeling. I stayed downstairs for another hour, thinking, planning. The humiliation from the pool party was still there, burning in my chest, but it was joined by something else now. Something that felt almost like relief. At least now I knew what I was dealing with. The next morning, I called in a favor from an old friend. Vince Morrison had been a cop for 15 years before he started his own security consulting business. More importantly, he was one of the few people who knew me before I met Lara, back when I was just another guy trying to make it in real estate. Evan Parrish, he said when he answered the phone. Haven't heard from you in months. Let me guess, you need something that's probably not completely legal. It's legal, I said. Just not completely ethical. Even better. What's going on? I gave him the condensed version, the pool party, the restaurant footage, the text messages. He listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I'd always liked about Vince. So you want me to follow your wife, he said when I finished. I want you to document her activities. There's a difference. Not really, but I appreciate the semantic distinction. What's your endgame here? That was the question I'd been asking myself all night. I don't know yet, but I need to know what I'm dealing with before I make any decisions. Fair enough. My rate is $200 a day plus expenses. Done. And Evan? Whatever you find out, whatever you decide to do with the information, make sure you can live with it afterward. I thought about that as I drove to work. Could I live with knowing the truth? Could I live with not knowing? By the time I reached the hotel, I'd made my decision. Donna was waiting in my office with the morning reports and a fresh pot of coffee. You look like you didn't get much sleep, she observed. I did some research last night, found some interesting text messages. How interesting? I showed her the screenshots. She read through them twice, her expression growing darker. Well, that settles it, she said finally. Settles what? Whether or not you were being paranoid, you weren't. So what do I do now? That depends. What do you want to happen? It was a simple question with a complicated answer. What did I want? A year ago, I would have said I wanted to save my marriage. 6 months ago, I might have suggested counseling, but after Saturday night, after seeing the way she looked at Matt, after reading those messages, I want her to understand what it feels like, I said. What feels like? Being humiliated, being made to look like a fool in front of people who matter to you. Donna nodded slowly. That's a dangerous road, boss. Maybe, but it's the only one that makes sense right now. My phone buzzed with a text from Lara. Working late tonight, don't wait up. I showed the message to Donna. Want to bet she's not actually working? She asked. No bet, but I think I know how to find out for sure. That afternoon, I drove to our neighborhood and parked across the street from Mrs. Rembold's house. Eleanor Rembold was 73 years old, had lived on our street for 40 years, and knew everything that happened within a 6-block radius. She was also lonely enough to welcome any visitor who brought cookies and showed genuine interest in her stories. Evan, dear, she said when she opened the door. What a lovely surprise. Come in, come in. Her living room was exactly what you'd expect from a woman who'd been collecting knickknacks since the Eisenhower administration. Every surface was covered with doilies, ceramic figurines, and framed photographs of grandchildren. I brought your favorite, I said, handing her a box of chocolate chip cookies from the hotel's restaurant. Oh, you spoil me. Sit down. I'll make tea. We spent 20 minutes discussing her garden, her book club, and her ongoing feud with the mailman. Then I steered the conversation toward my real purpose. Mrs. Rembold, I hope you don't mind me asking, but have you noticed anything unusual around our house lately? Any strangers in the neighborhood? Her eyes lit up. This was exactly the kind of question she'd been hoping someone would ask. Well, now that you mention it, there has been a rather flashy car parked in your driveway quite often. A red sports car, very loud engine. When have you seen it? Oh, various times. Usually when you're not home, dear. I assumed it was one of Lara's friends, but I did think it was odd that they never seemed to visit when you were there. How often would you say? At least once a week for the past few months, sometimes more. The young man who drives it is quite handsome, I must say. Very athletic looking. Matt's car. Matt in my driveway, in my house, probably in my bed, while I was working to pay the mortgage. Have you seen him recently? Just yesterday, actually. He was there for several hours in the afternoon, left around 5 o'clock, I think. Yesterday. The same day Lara had made that elaborate dinner, worn my favorite dress, been extra affectionate. The same day she'd claimed to be working on event planning projects. Mrs. Rembold, I hope this doesn't sound strange, but if you happen to see that car again, would you mind giving me a call? I'm trying to figure out some security issues for the neighborhood. Of course, dear. I'm always happy to help keep an eye on things. I left her house with more than enough confirmation of what I already suspected. But confirmation wasn't enough. I needed documentation. I needed evidence that couldn't be explained away or dismissed. That evening, I installed a small security camera in the oak tree across from our driveway. It was one of those wireless models designed for hunting, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. The app on my phone would alert me whenever it detected motion. Then I went home and had dinner with my wife, who told me all about her busy day of client meetings and venue scouting. She was a good liar. I had to give her that. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed every word. "How's the hotel business?" she asked, cutting into her salmon. "Good. We're looking at expanding to a second location." "That's exciting. Where?" "Haven't decided yet. Might require some travel to scout properties." "Well, you know I support your work," she said, reaching across to squeeze my hand, "even if it means spending some nights alone." The irony was so thick I could taste it. "I appreciate that," I said. Not every wife would be so understanding. After dinner, she curled up next to me on the couch to watch a movie. She seemed relaxed, content, like someone without a care in the world, like someone who wasn't carrying on a months-long affair behind her husband's back. I found myself studying her profile in the flickering light of the television. When had she become a stranger to me? When had I stopped really seeing her? Or maybe the better question was, when had she stopped seeing me as anything more than a convenient source of financial security? My phone buzzed with an alert from the security camera. Her constant suggestions that Selena deserved better, that she should focus on herself, that marriage was just a piece of paper, her enthusiasm for the festival, and her insistence that Selena invite old friends. "They played her," I said. "They played both of you. The public humiliation wasn't just cruelty, it was strategy. The more embarrassed and angry you are, the more likely you are to agree to a quick divorce settlement. Jonas needs access to your joint assets fast." I thought about Selena's parting comment about sending someone for her things, her mention of discussing the house and accounts. She'd been coached. "So what's your plan?" I asked. Marcus grinned. "That depends. How good are you with computers?" As it turned out, I was very good with computers. Good enough to help Marcus trace the fake accounts that had been used to harass Jonas's previous victims. Good enough to recover deleted social media messages between Jonas and Lila. Good enough to find evidence of their scheme that would hold up in civil court, if not criminal. But more importantly, I was good enough to turn their own tactics against them. The beauty of their system, I explained to Marcus as we sat in my shop that evening, is that it depends on information control. They know things about their targets that the targets don't know about them. But information flows both ways. I pulled up Jonas's social media profiles on my laptop. Look at this. 3 different Instagram accounts, each one carefully curated for different audiences. This one makes him look like a successful entrepreneur. This one makes him look like a sensitive artist type. And this one, I clicked to the 3rd account. This one is where he keeps photos with all his conquests. Marcus whistled low. "Including your wife." "Including my wife," posted 2 days before the festival. The photo showed Jonas and Selena at some upscale restaurant, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing. The timestamp proved they'd been seeing each other long before her spontaneous declaration of love. "This is good," Marcus said. "But we need more than just proof of an affair." "Oh, we'll get more." I was already typing, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Jonas made one crucial mistake. He underestimated his target's husband. Over the next 3 days, I systematically dismantled Jonas Hartwell's carefully constructed online persona. I didn't hack anything. That would be illegal. Instead, I used publicly available information and social engineering to expose the contradictions in his various profiles. I created a timeline showing how his claims of business success didn't match his actual financial filings. I cross-referenced his social media posts with court records to show his pattern of targeting married women. I even found security camera footage from a restaurant where he'd been seen arguing with one of his previous victims. But my masterpiece was the website I built, jonashartwelltruth.com. Clean, professional, and devastating. It laid out the entire scheme with documentation, photos, and testimonials from his previous victims, women who were finally ready to speak out once they realized they weren't alone. The site went live on a Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, it had been shared across every social media platform in town. By Friday evening, Jonas was trending again, but this time, he was the villain. My phone rang around midnight. Selena's number. "What the hell did you do?" she screamed. "I told the truth," I said calmly. "How's that working out for you?" "You're destroying his life." "He destroyed his own life, and several other lives along the way. I just documented it." I paused. "How does it feel to find out you weren't special, Selena? That you were just another mark in his con game?" The silence on the other end stretched for nearly a minute. "He loves me," she said finally, but her voice lacked conviction. "No, he doesn't. He loves your credit score and your joint bank accounts. Check his Instagram if you don't believe me. You're not the first woman he's posted photos with, and you won't be the last." She hung up, but not before I heard her start to cry. I should have felt bad about that. Instead, I felt something much more dangerous. Satisfaction. The real confrontation was coming. Jonas wouldn't take this lying down, and neither would Lila. They'd invested too much time and effort in this scheme to let it collapse without a fight. But that was fine with me. I'd spent 3 days playing defense, documenting their crimes and exposing their methods. Now it was time to go on the offensive. Jonas showed up at my shop on Monday morning, and he wasn't alone. 2 men in expensive suits flanked him, the kind of men who solved problems with their fists rather than their words. I was ready for them. "We need to talk," Jonas said, his usual smooth confidence replaced by barely controlled rage. "Talk away," I said, not looking up from the computer I was repairing. "Shop's open to the public. You're going to take down that website." "Am I?" I finally looked up at him. "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, things are going to get very unpleasant for you." I glanced at his 2 companions, then back at Jonas. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." I smiled and reached under the counter, pulling out my phone. "That's interesting, because I'm recording this conversation, and I've got 3 security cameras running in here." I pointed to the corners of the room. "So if anything happens to me, the police will know exactly who to look for." Jonas's face flushed red. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won?" "I think I've exposed a predator who's been victimizing women for years. If that makes me smart, I'll take it. Those women knew what they were doing. They made their own choices. After you manipulated them with lies and false promises, after your partner Lila fed you inside information about their marriages and finances." I stood up, and Jonas took a half step back. "I've got documentation of everything, Jonas. Your gambling debts, your failed businesses, your pattern of targeting vulnerable women. The only choice those women made was trusting the wrong person." "Prove it." I turned my laptop around so he could see the screen. It showed a series of text messages between Jonas and Lila, discussing strategy for approaching Selena. "She's unhappy in her marriage. Husband works too much, doesn't appreciate her. Classic pattern." "What's the financial situation?" "Joint accounts, house is paid off, she's got a good job. Could be worth 200, 300K if we play it right. Perfect. Start working on her self-esteem. Make her feel like she deserves better. Jonas went pale as he read his own words. Where did you get these? Lila's not as smart as she thinks she is. She never deleted them from her cloud backup. I closed the laptop. The question is, does Selena know she was just a business transaction to you? You bastard! Jonas lunged forward, but I was ready. I sidestepped and let him crash into the counter, then grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back. His two companions started forward, but froze when they saw the baseball bat in my other hand. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice perfectly calm. You're going to leave my shop. You're going to stay away from my wife. And you're going to find a new line of work because this town isn't big enough for your scams anymore. Let me go when I'm finished talking. I twisted his arm a little tighter. I've sent copies of everything I found to the district attorney's office, the state attorney general, and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I've also sent copies to every major news outlet in the region. Your face is going to be on the evening news tonight, Jonas. How's that for publicity? I released his arm and stepped back. Jonas straightened his jacket, trying to salvage some dignity. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. After they left, I called Marcus Webb. Phase 1 complete, I told him. He took the bait. Good. Are you ready for Phase 2? More than ready. Phase 2 began that evening. I'd arranged for Trish to host a community meeting at her bar, ostensibly to discuss the Jonas situation, but really to get all the key players in the same room. Selena showed up, looking haggard and uncertain. Lila came with her, playing the supportive friend role to perfection. Jonas arrived fashionably late, probably hoping to make some kind of dramatic entrance. What he found instead was a room full of his previous victims. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, standing up as Jonas walked through the door, I'd like you all to meet Jonas Hartwell. Some of you already know him quite well. Sarah Chen stood up first. You destroyed my marriage. And my credit, added Jennifer Rodriguez. And my business, said Lisa Park. Jonas looked around the room like a trapped animal. I don't know what lies this man has been telling you. We compared notes, Sarah interrupted. Turns out you used the exact same lines on all of us. The exact same promises, even the same restaurants for your dates. Selena was staring at Jonas with growing horror. Is this true? Selena, baby, you have to understand. Don't call me baby. She stood up, her voice shaking with rage. Just answer the question. Is it true? Jonas looked around the room, saw the faces of his victims, saw Marcus Webb sitting in the corner with his camera, saw me watching him with cold satisfaction. It's not what you think, he said weakly. It's exactly what I think, Selena said. Oh God, I'm such an idiot. I destroyed my marriage for a con man. Selena, wait! But she was already walking toward the door. She stopped next to me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I know, I said, but sorry doesn't fix this. She nodded and left. Lila tried to follow her, but I blocked her path. Not so fast, I said. We need to talk about your role in all this. Lila's mask finally slipped completely. The sweet, supportive friend disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. You can't prove anything, she said. Actually, I can. I pulled out my phone and played a recording of her conversation with Jonas from earlier that day, a conversation I'd captured using the same surveillance techniques Marcus had taught me. Conspiracy to commit fraud, extortion, harassment. The DA is going to have a field day with you. Lila's face went white. You were recording us? Just like you were recording Selena. Turnabout's fair play. I looked around the room at Jonas's other victims. Ladies, I believe you have some things you'd like to say to Ms. Brennan here. What followed was the most satisfying 10 minutes of my life. 4 women who'd been manipulated, lied to, and financially abused finally got to confront one of their abusers. Lila tried to maintain her innocence, but the evidence was overwhelming. By the time it was over, both Jonas and Lila had fled the bar, their reputations in ruins and their scheme completely exposed. Marcus walked over to me as the crowd dispersed. "That was beautiful," he said. "But you know this isn't the end, right? Jonas still has your wife." I smiled. "Actually, he doesn't. Check your phone." Marcus looked confused but pulled out his phone. His eyes widened as he read the screen. "Selena filed for divorce an hour ago," I said. "And not the quick settlement Jonas was hoping for. She's asking for a full forensic accounting of all marital assets and a restraining order against Jonas Hartwell." "How did you—" "I didn't do anything. She made that choice herself, once she finally saw who Jonas really was." I finished my beer and stood up. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people see the truth. But as I walked home that night, I knew the truth was more complicated than that. Yes, I'd exposed Jonas and Lila. Yes, I'd saved other women from falling victim to their scheme. Yes, I'd gotten my revenge on the people who'd humiliated me. But I'd also destroyed my marriage in the process. Selena might be divorcing me now, but the damage was already done. We'd never be able to trust each other again, never be able to forget what had happened at that festival. The video of her kissing Jonas was still out there, still going viral, still turning our private pain into public entertainment. I'd won the war, but the victory felt hollow. At least, that's what I thought, until I got home and found an envelope waiting for me on my doorstep. Inside was a cashier's check for $50,000 and a note. "Thank you for giving me my life back. Sarah Chen." Similar envelopes arrived over the next few days. Jennifer Rodriguez sent $20,000. Lisa Park sent $15,000. Even women I'd never met, women who'd heard about Jonas through the news coverage, sent money and thank you notes. By the end of the week, I'd received over $200,000 in donations from Jonas's victims and their supporters. More importantly, I'd received something I hadn't expected: gratitude. I'd started this journey wanting revenge. I'd ended it becoming something I never thought I could be: a hero. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jonas had tried to destroy my life to save his own failing empire. Instead, he'd given me something better than revenge. He'd given me purpose. 3 months later, I stood on the same stage where my wife had humiliated me, looking out at a crowd of 5,000 people who'd come to hear my story. The Millbrook Music Festival had invited me back as a keynote speaker for their new Digital Safety and Financial Fraud Awareness program. The irony was delicious. 3 months ago, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. I was standing in the VIP section over there, watching my marriage end in the most public way possible. Tonight, I'm here to tell you what I learned from that experience. In the crowd, I could see familiar faces. Marcus Webb, now my business partner in a new venture helping fraud victims. Trish Kowalski, who'd become more than just a friend in the weeks following the Jonas investigation. My daughter Mia, home from college, and proudly filming my speech for her social media followers. The first thing I learned, I continued, is that humiliation is temporary, but dignity is permanent. You can't lose your dignity unless you give it away. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. This was a very different audience from the one that had laughed at my pain 3 months ago. The second thing I learned is that predators rely on isolation. They convince their victims that they're alone, that no one will believe them, that no one will help them. But that's a lie. There are always people willing to help. You just have to be brave enough to ask. I clicked to the next slide in my presentation, showing photos of Jonas's victims, women who'd agreed to share their stories publicly to help others avoid the same fate. These women were targeted by a sophisticated con artist who used emotional manipulation and financial seduction to destroy their lives. But they're not victims anymore, they're survivors, and they're fighters. The applause was thunderous. In the VIP section, I could see Sarah Chen wiping away tears. "The third thing I learned," I said as the applause died down, "is that the internet never forgets, but that's not always a bad thing." I clicked to the final slide, showing statistics from the website I'd built to expose Jonas. Over 1 million visitors, hundreds of tips about similar scams, dozens of other predators exposed and stopped. That video of my wife kissing another man has been viewed over 10 million times. For a while, that felt like the worst thing that could happen to me. But you know what? Those 10 million views also led to justice for dozens of women who thought they'd never get it. The crowd rose to their feet, applauding. I waited for them to settle before delivering my closing remarks. Jonas Hartwell is in prison now, serving 5 years for fraud and extortion. His partner Lila Brennan is serving 3 years as an accessory. The women they victimized have recovered most of their stolen assets and are rebuilding their lives. I paused, looking out at the crowd of faces, some sympathetic, some curious, some inspired. But the real victory isn't that the bad guys got caught. The real victory is that their victims found their voices, that they refused to be ashamed of being targeted by predators, that they turned their pain into power. Another wave of applause swept through the crowd. I held up my hand for silence. I started this journey wanting revenge. I ended it finding something better: purpose. The Jonas Hartwell Foundation has helped over 300 fraud victims recover their assets and rebuild their lives. We've trained law enforcement agencies in 12 states on how to identify and prosecute romance scams. We've created educational programs that have reached over 1 million people. I smiled, thinking about how far I'd come from that night 3 months ago when I'd sat in my empty house, watching my humiliation go viral. So, to anyone out there who's been victimized, who's been humiliated, who's been told they're powerless, you're not. You have more strength than you know. You have more support than you realize. And you have more power to change things than your abusers want you to believe. The standing ovation lasted for 5 full minutes. As I walked off the stage, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to find Selena standing there, tears in her eyes. "That was beautiful," she said. "I'm proud of you." We'd been through months of difficult divorce proceedings, complicated by the fraud investigation and media attention, but we'd managed to end things with dignity, splitting our assets fairly and maintaining respect for each other. "How are you doing?" I asked. "Better. Therapy helps. And knowing that what happened to me helped prevent it from happening to other women. That helps too." She smiled sadly. "I'm sorry, Dave, for everything." "I know, and I forgive you." It was true. The anger had faded, replaced by something more complex, understanding maybe, or just acceptance. Selena had been a victim too, in her own way. Jonas and Lila had targeted her specifically because she was vulnerable, because her marriage was going through a rough patch, because she was looking for something she wasn't finding at home. That didn't excuse what she'd done, but it explained it, and understanding, I'd learned, was the first step toward healing. "What's next for you?" she asked. I looked out at the crowd, still buzzing with energy from the speech. In the VIP section, Trish was waiting for me with a smile that made my heart race in ways I hadn't felt in years. "I'm thinking about expanding the foundation nationally," I said. "Maybe writing a book. Definitely taking some time to figure out what happiness looks like when you're not trying to make someone else happy." Selena followed my gaze to Trish and smiled. "She's good for you." "Yeah, she is." We stood there for a moment in comfortable silence, two people who'd shared 8 years of marriage and one spectacular public breakup, finally at peace with each other. "I should go," Selena said finally. "But Dave, thank you. I just made sure everyone else knew about it." She was crying now, the kind of desperate sobs that might have moved me a week ago. But that was before I'd seen the photos, before I'd watched her lie to my face night after night. "Where are you staying?" I asked, more out of practical necessity than concern. Monica's, but she's not. She's being weird about everything. Of course she was. Monica's social standing depended on being associated with the right people, and right now, Lara was definitely not the right people. Your things are packed. I'll have them delivered wherever you want. Evan, please. I hung up. Donna was watching me with a mixture of sympathy and concern. You okay? I will be. Monday brought a new wave of attention. The hotel's phone rang constantly with reporters wanting comments, society bloggers fishing for more details, and curious acquaintances pretending to check on my well-being while obviously hoping for gossip. I gave the same response to everyone. It's a private matter, and I have no further comment. But the story had taken on a life of its own. Someone had recorded part of Saturday night's confrontation on their phone, and the video was making the rounds on social media. Matt's Instagram and TikTok accounts were flooded with comments ranging from criticism to outright mockery. Several of his sponsorship deals had already been pulled. Lara's event planning business was suffering too. 3 clients had canceled contracts by Monday afternoon, citing changed circumstances and image concerns. The revenge was working exactly as I'd planned, but success felt different than I'd expected. Tuesday afternoon, I was reviewing the hotel's quarterly reports when Vince knocked on my office door. Got a minute? He asked. Always. What's going on? I wanted to check on you, make sure you're handling all this okay. I'm fine. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a man who got exactly what he wanted and isn't sure he actually wanted it. I set down the reports and really looked at him. Vince had been a cop long enough to read people, and he was reading me like an open book. She betrayed me, I said. For months. While I was working to build something for our future, she was sneaking around with her ex-boyfriend, lying to my face every single day. I know, and she deserved to face consequences for that. But destroying someone's entire life, their reputation, their livelihood, that's a hell of a thing to carry around. She destroyed her own life. I just made sure people knew about it. Maybe. Or maybe you took your hurt and anger and turned it into something that's going to eat at you for years to come. I wanted to argue with him, to insist that I'd done the right thing, that justice had been served. But sitting there in my office, surrounded by the trappings of my success, I felt more alone than I had in years. What was I supposed to do? I asked. Pretend it never happened? Let them keep making a fool of me? There were other options. Divorce lawyers, private confrontations, ways to end the marriage without turning it into a public spectacle. She humiliated me first, at the pool party in front of everyone. And now you've humiliated her back, so you're even. The question is, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? That evening, I drove past our old house. My house now, I supposed. It looked exactly the same from the outside, but it felt different somehow. Empty, like a movie set after the cameras stop rolling. I thought about the 4 years Lara and I had spent there. The lazy Sunday mornings, the dinner parties with friends, the quiet evenings watching movies on the couch. Had any of it been real? Or had I been living in a carefully constructed illusion the whole time? My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Saw the news coverage, mission accomplished. Let me know if you need anything else. Mission accomplished. That's exactly what this had been. A mission, a campaign, a calculated effort to destroy the people who had hurt me. And it had worked perfectly. So why did victory feel so much like defeat? I drove to the hotel and went up to my office, even though it was after 10 p.m. The building was quiet, just the night security guard and the skeleton crew that kept things running after hours. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop, intending to work on the quarterly projections. Instead, I found myself looking at photos from Saturday night's party, not the ones Derek had displayed on the screen, but the ones from earlier in the evening, when everyone was still smiling and laughing and having a good time. There was a picture of me, greeting guests at the entrance, looking confident and successful. Another of the renovated ballroom in all its glory, filled with well-dressed people enjoying themselves.